first of all, woke up at my normal time to prepare for the show. Because, sometimes people think, well, you do that so often and it's just natural, so on and so forth. Wrong. Just tons
Definitely
of
wrong.
study.
Okay.
So like 4 this morning, I'm up, reviewing notes to ensure stuff is right. Get my uniform together because I'm wearing service dress blue today. What an honor it is to wear our finest uniform. And then went over on my way here, I was like, I think I'll stop by and see the folks taking the rating exam this morning. So I popped in and spoke to those folks taking the first class exam, E6 exam. Had a couple of words with them. No luck. I'm the anti-luck person. If luck was a person at a rating exam, I'd put my foot on his throat and ended life because I don't want you to luckily make it to the next rank. I want your preparation and your rating competency to get you there. Not if you want luck. I wish you luck playing the lottery. But when it comes down to the rating exam, and matter of fact, put me down if you win. But when it comes to luckily advancing, absolutely not.
That's all hard work. That's studying and prep and really knowing your stuff. So.
Yeah, PQS, conversations in your shop, all those things. I want that to pay off and reflect in your rating score. So.
Can you believe it's March 1st? It is February's done.
Time for the madness, though. The good thing is that as March brings basketball, and that is very strangely how we connect months to certain important events, especially with entertainment.
Right.
Some people think about the summer months as all these new movies are going to come out because they want to be entertained.
That's me.
And sometimes we think, to me, I should say, I think about March and basketball because I want to be entertained, and I think the best basketball is at the college level. So
I love any college sports is always a good time. But so we're leaving February, and February is Black History Month. How was that ceremony?
Well, it was pretty darn good. So it turns out I didn't realize at the time, but it was actually the CNA 6th Fleet multicultural team that put that together. I guess the base or whatever chose not to do a ceremony. They were going to do something else. So CNA put it together. A ton of folks came. Commander C.J. Jessup was the guest speaker, but it was really it was good, and I was glad that we had the opportunity to do it. I don't have the chance to MC very much anymore because to me MC means move the crowd. If I could quote that poet Rakim. But we talked about many familiar heroes like Dory Miller and Samuel Gravely. We talked about the Men of Mason, the Tuskegee Airmen, Colin Powell, some other not so familiar names like Darren Mars. Darren Mars came into my life in 1986 and had just a remarkable amount of patience and provided some major life advice for me that kind of set me on the right course. Or people like Ed Hazley and Mac Austin, same thing, just kind of spoke into my life in a very patient way. They were all older than me, but they spoke into my life in a very patient way. This guy Carlton Brigham named Greyhound and Harpo, SH2 Harps. He said, "Man, I'm the most senior SH2 in the Navy." But I just remember those folks because my career started really badly when it comes down to racism and discrimination. So to be around young black leaders at the time who had the patience for an 18-year-old young man, who had
probably a little angry, yeah,
just walking around, Afro dashiki, fist in the air, barefooted, just representing, those who couldn't get there. Vic Dalton, I was stationed with him. He happened to be the first black IS Master Chief, which was a absolute big deal. Force Master Chief Ronnie Wright. I could just go on. Keith Gooseby, another just flat out rock star who showed me that even though you were a Master Chief, you could still be down to earth and approachable, and people could talk to you. I was an E5, just made E6 when I met him, and didn't even realize he was a Master Chief. I mean, he was just a dude that played ball with us.
That's amazing.
It is. I mean, but again, he was the example of, you can still be down to earth no matter what uniform you wear. But Force Master Chief Ronnie Wright, who ran the reserves and asked me to be the first active duty member to be a voting member of the Reserve Sailor of the Year Board. Another person, just huge patience, spoken again, just kind of gave some direction to my life. Master Chief Dublin, who was the CMC on board the Blue Ridge, when I was out there working with that team, getting my training in out there at 7th Fleet. Fred Farr, Fred Farr was another Force Master Chief who was a big deal, as people looked up to aspire to be somebody. Chuck Clark, our first Black Fleet Master Chief, Scott Tyndall, Tony Johnson. I could just go on for days.
I see. So we have all these big names and big, heavy influences for you at a young age. But now it's March, and we're moving. It's officially Women's History Month. So how do you feel? What about Women's History?
I can make that transition too. I mean, in fact, and I could just just roll call. I mean, so if I think about Juanita Bennett, right? So Juanita Bennett was my first Black female that I worked for. She was. And it was my second tour in the Navy. So 1990, I reported to Washington, D.C., and she was my LPO. And again, I was that angry Black man, fist in the air, kind of furious about life. And the way I felt, I had been, persecuted and treated and so forth. Yeah. And then she just very patiently pulled the string on this deeply rooted chauvinism that I didn't even know I had in me. And she matured me away from that by giving me some comparative analysis to the persecution that females had gone through compared to blacks. I just wasn't ready for that, but she changed my magnetic north and kind of made me see things very differently. But Laura Martinez, another name, just out of nowhere. She turned out to be a Force Master Chief for the Corpsman rating. She seemed like the grandmother, to the Navy. I mean, she was real patient, very kind, soft-spoken. But boy, she was one of the Master Chiefs during my initiation. And one fine day, I got out of line, sang a cadence I shouldn't have been singing, and whoa, she broke me down like to the very last compound, as they say.
She said you thought.
I was pushing the ground and shivering. But Laura Martinez, just a fantastic leader. Jarita Kearns, who was a detailer for me. Linda Parker, LPO, the first Black female I ever watched go through initiation because we were stationed together. She was my LPO at the time. Master Chief Amanda Austin, who just transformed the PRT rating, for the PRT exam for the Navy, and as we transitioned to PHAs. Alicia Barnes and Fleet April Beldo. I mean, come on now. I mean, women's history is my history too. I mean, because if it had not been for those women speaking life and showing things to me, I'd have just been walking around bumping into myself, making decisions on my own. Fleet Master Chief Suze Whitman, absolutely somebody. Our first Fleet Master Chief, our first female Fleet Master Chief was Jackie DeRosa, somebody else who was just absolutely getting after it. Very recently, Valencia Simmons Fowler was named the first CW05 in the IP field. So our first information professional, CW05, just the top of the heap, if you will. She was just named, I think, back in November or so. And then our most senior, Black female in the Navy, Dee Allen, just very recently visited here from 10th Fleet. I mean, so come on now. My history is throughout the year. And so whether it's women's history or Hispanic heritage or whether it's American Indian, because I'm part of the 5 civilized tribes, it's my history. So, yeah, I love it. The thing about Navy Marine Corps Relief is that it's really sailors helping sailors. And so there is a fund drive that begins March the 2nd. I think it runs through April the 20th. So those of you who are listening or watching on Facebook Live, go ahead and reach out to your representative. But the thing is that, when we have the opportunity to contribute to Navy Marine Corps Relief, it goes to sailors. We don't have to worry about some bureaucracy. We don't have to worry about something else. It goes to them.
I mean, I've gotten a loan within them.
Me too.
Me too.
It
helps.
First into the Navy, I had a couple of tragic deaths in the family, very unexpected, and I mean, I was E1, E2 and those E2 in those days, and so same thing. Couldn't make it home. I was stationed in Philly, couldn't get back to Oklahoma, and so I reached out to our Navy Marine Corps Relief folks. It was a tax-free loan, it worked out. In some situations, they actually give grants, where you don't have to pay the money back. And
Right.
I mean, they help with groceries and they help building a budget so you don't find yourself in that situation again. And so, as there is an opportunity, please, oh please, again, hopefully you will consider doing that. Joe Schnurbush is the deputy region person in charge of Navy Marine Corps Relief on the East Coast, and absolute known good leader, and has helped a high number of sailors when I was over on the East Coast, and I know he's still doing it today. So reach out and let's help those folks, because it's absolutely worth it. But there's so many things happening across the Navy, and we talked about a lot of them last week when we were discussing the CNO's event. But I was reading an article, and I know you guys do. What do you call it? You do military time, Stars and Stripes readings, and I was making my way through there, and it was talking about MSC, so Military Sea Lift Command. We don't talk enough, I don't believe, about our partnership within the Navy. So you've got active duty sailors and reserves, and we just can't do what we do without reserves coming on active duty for a period of time, serving and doing great things. Whether it's somebody like Chief Zatrine, who has done numerous tours, downrange and in Bahrain and in Djibouti, or if it's Chief James, again, same type of thing, served in the dirt, doing active deployments there, or if it is our civilians sailors, or civilian shipmates is what some people call them. And I think that's an appropriate term. Shipmate is a term of endearment. It is a term that means that we are family. We have endured some measure of training, whether it be boot camp or officer training or the academy or whatever. Some way or another, you made it into active duty. You have made it into the uniform, the honor to wear the cloth of our nation. And our civilians, in a different way, have entered into service, and to them, I mean, if we use the term shipmate, it is flat out a term of endearment, and not anything else but that. Anyhow, kind of a bunny
I've
trail.
worked with MSC, so.
But so and they just do. I mean, as hard a work as just as hard as any active duty person, or any person who might be tasked with sitting in a cubicle. They have to think hard at what they do and apply intellectual power and strength. Well, they do the same thing. And so, interesting article in Stars and Stripes that talks about how those ships, which are led by civilians, are playing a very big role, especially with that aggressor, Russia. And it is a worthy read, and we should just acknowledge the entire team, not just the what do you call it? Just active duty service members or uniform wearers. We should recognize the entire team. And so I thought it was an interesting article there in Stars and Stripes. But I'm gonna tell you what, across our Navy, I mean, change is happening, and if you're not working woke,
a lot of changes. Because I read the Stars and Stripes every morning, so I'm seeing things just unfold.
Yeah.
Not sure if we're ready to talk about the one thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, let's bring it on. What is it?
So that incentives coming out of Japan, that was crazy to me.
Well, hold on. Okay. I gotta put the brakes on that thing right now. So yes, there's super incentives coming, but not FDNF means Forward Deployed Naval Forces, and so those sailors who are stationed in Rota on board those guided missile destroyers, those sailors we have on Mount Whitney are going to get all those same incentives. So all of us, that's a fact. That's a fact. So if you're walking on water for a living, then and you're doing it in the Forward Deployed Naval Forces capacity, FDNF Europe, then you're getting the very same incentives. So there is, the only advantage between 7th Fleet and 6th Fleet is in 6th Fleet we're firing weapons and killing bad guys. In 6th Fleet we are aggressively pursuing submarines and observing, that aggressor Russia. In 6th Fleet, what we're doing is launching and recovering aircraft from the Eastern Mediterranean, killing bad guys over in 5th Fleet. I'm just saying, on our southern border, we're snatching bad guys off the continent of Africa and taking them to justice. So yes, as a matter of fact, yes, the advantage is here because we are activating our training. Now, that trouble don't last always, as they say, and there is a extremely aggressive and fierce threat over in 7th Fleet. Absolutely can't take lightly their posture and preparation over there, and we just happen to be here squeezing the trigger. But those incentives. Oh my gracious!
Woo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, if I could turn back the hands of time, there's a couple of things that I wish I could do. If you gave me that blended retirement system, and I'm not personally a really big fan of that, because it seems like it is creating an environment where folks might want to. It might be easier to get out.
Right.
And I want you to stay. I don't want you to be the vocational nomad that it seems to be popular. I've got friends and family who have had 6 or 7 jobs, until they find, that one particular thing that they want to do. And I'm thinking, yeah, I want that. Wow. I want you to come in here, committed, dedicated, and stay. But anyhow, so these incentives, okay, we're going to give you X amount of dollars to stay at sea, or we're going to take a rating like IT. First tour, your first sea tour is 60 months. What? But you can go to Rhoda, and instead of having to do that full 60 months, what you'll do is 48 months. And then at that time, you make your way to a preferred location, right, based on the fact that you have served in the aggressive and high op tempo and super duper hard FDNF Navy. So our ships, again, out of Rota, Spain, are the most underway ships in the Navy. They have the highest op tempo. 4 months in, 4 months out, and the 4 months in is really not in. What happens is they come in for maintenance, and then you got to go out and you do sea trials, and you come back in, then you have to go out and do drills that you can only do at sea, fire weapons and tests, which you can only do at sea. So without question, I say that those sailors deserve the incentives that are out there. And so for the listening audience and those who may be paying attention on the Facebook machine, realize that if you go to the NPC website, you can see all the details in the message that talk about those incentives, and they're fantastic. Well, I tell you, and I think that every sailor who is coming up on a rotation, within the next 12 months, has interesting opportunities, right? So now your transfer window, instead of being 9 months, is 12 months, and so you start your negotiation process very early, and so the opportunity to have that conversation, 12 months out is a big deal, but will allow you to consider what do I want to do career-wise, and right, so what type of tour is going to be most opportune for me, and then from there, what incentives are involved. So if I go to Rota and get on board one of those absolutely getting after it warfighting ships, then what incentives are there to do that very, very hard job? Right. If you wanted to choose to go to an aircraft carrier, especially for MCs, I mean, there's just so much to do on board an aircraft carrier. Do I want to take one stateside, or do I want to take an FDNF aircraft carrier, and those types of things. So through your career development boards with your chain of command, and that's for everyone who gets them, which is all ranks, including me. I get one too. You go through your career development board. Patiently think those things out. Now the incentives just change the game a bit.
They definitely did. But speaking, so that's a big change in the Navy, and then we got a change today. I didn't know this.
Matter of fact,
we got a change of a command.
That's right, change of command. So 6th Fleet, the commander U.S. 6th Fleet, Vice Admiral Chris Grady, who's a flat-out rock star.
You always have some great things to say about him.
I mean, he is the absolute real. He's a warfighter's warfighter and a leader's leader. So he is being relieved by someone with a fantastic reputation, another surface warrior, Rear Admiral Franchetti. She's coming here from the Pentagon, served on the Joint Staff. And so the Pentagon, if you didn't know, has got a number of rings. So from the inside, the A ring, which is closest to the courtyard, and then the E ring, which is on the outer side. Well, all the fancy folks sit on the E ring. They're the ones who have the windows, to see the Capitol, right, so on and so forth, like the CNO, SecNav, and she has had the opportunity to serve with the folks who have worked on the E-wing, and so her perspective on big Navy things is fantastic to have in this theater. So she's a warfighter, killer machine. That's just already established as a surface warrior who's also been a carrier strike group commander, which is an unusual breed, and she's got a mix, known good, by the way. Again, tons of people have been calling me saying, "Hey, she's the real deal. Look forward to working with her." Command Master Chief 01MAR is the recipient of great leadership in his particular organization. But to have that mixture there is a really, really big deal. And what also makes that a big deal is that Sixth Fleet's own flagship, Mount Whitney, USS Mount Whitney, is in town. So, in a very rare occasion, the Mount Whitney is parked here in Napoli. And so those people who have the opportunity to go and observe change of command. First of all, that's a big deal. You don't oftentimes get to see a 3-star change of command happen. So that is a grand opportunity for people to go out and take advantage of that, see the flagship. And I encourage those who are going, 2 things. One, dress warm because it's pretty chilly, and it's an open air tent for the service, so we won't get rained on in case it does rain. And then secondly, and I'd say tantamount equal to that, go ahead and take a tour of the ship. And so there'll be sailors there who are able, willing, and trained to give a brief tour of the ship. So anyone who's attending the ceremony who perhaps has never been on board Mount Whitney, you'll have the unique opportunity to take a tour as well. But within the region, I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. So their NSA security, MA2 Swanton, made his way to the All-Navy wrestling team. And
we have a wrestling team? I knew
Navy,
we had a fighting thing.
We got All-Navy basketball, we got All-Navy boxing, we got All-Navy softball and baseball.
That's crazy.
We've got a track team that's a beast. A soccer team is absolutely legit, competing at the inter-service level. And, our very own MA2 on the wrestling team. Not just a team member, though. Went and got himself a silver medal. So represented us there, and that's just a big deal. Thankfully,
that's awesome.
He works in an organization where his division, department, command supports him going out to do that.
Come on, if you got a sailor that's that good,
you want
them to compete.
Yeah,
Navy got to stay winning. Apparently,
get out there and represent us there.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'll tell you though. So again, Mount Whitney, change of command, fantastic administrative things going on. But lest we forget, this is the fighting fleet.
Right.
So CTF 67 had a patrol aircraft getting engaged yet again by a Russian fighter jet.
What does that mean for us, though? Because this has been happening a lot. So, what would happen as far as Russia's concerned?
Well, the thing is this, right?
I'll get too political on here.
Our life is to execute, the mission,
right.
Which is to support and defend the Constitution, right? So, when a fighter jet encounters a patrol craft, there's obviously a bit of a disadvantage. You take a smaller, more maneuverable aircraft, by the way, with weapons, to pull up on one of our aircraft. That's a tricky situation. The thing is for the pilots and the team to maintain their professionalism, while they do that. And so no matter what maneuvers the jet does, they have come as in close proximity as within 5 feet of the aircraft in the air, by the way. They've jumped in front of us and created, turbulence that may have shaken the aircraft, but they still performed their responsibilities with a high level of vigilance, and they didn't become unprofessional, which is a big deal. And they have, that happened again just over the Black Sea. And something else that happens is that sometimes our surface craft will have encounters with Russian ships that, again, may act unprofessionally. So may come in proximity, they may try to cut across our bow or something to that effect. But we have maintained, and it's our ships that are here in FDNF Europe as well as the transiting ships, those surface warriors have maintained such a high level of professionalism that we're starting to see more professional encounters at sea rather than all of the chaotic maneuvers that those Russian ships had done previously. So imagine that. We're maintaining such a high level of professionalism that even our enemy is beginning to act more professionally. That is a measure, that is an expectation of excellence that we are absolutely executing without pause.